Are you ready? Hopefully that's a yes. Okay. Good morning or afternoon for those of you on the East Coast. My name is Daisy Daniel. I am a doctoral student at University of New Mexico, and I am chair of the AMCD Professional Development Committee. And today we are very excited to bring Dr. Michael Brooks, Dr. Ashley Dickerson, and Dr. Taunya Tinsley. Dr. Michael Brooks is a counselor educator, and he's currently at North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro, North Carolina. And Dr. Ashley Dickerson is a counselor educator at Augsburg University in Atlanta. She's also owner of the AD Advantage Counseling and Educational Services, LLC. And Dr. Taunya Tinsley, she is incoming AMCD president, and she is also the owner. I'm sorry, I just lost it.
Owner of Transitions Counseling Services.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry about that. Your bio is insane. That I literally am like,
Owner of Transitions Counseling Services and Director of the Graduate School of Counseling at Missio Seminary.
Yes, ma'am. So first of all, thank you so much all for being here. I feel like you are perfect for this webinar. You all have such amazing resumes, CVs, different experiences across not just AMCD, but counselor education as a whole. And also on a personal note, I'm grateful because all of you have mentored me in some way. And we're just really excited to have you on today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So I will hand it over to you to kick it off.
Okay, let me share my screen here.
And as she's sharing the screen, if those of you who have questions along the way, we'll have time at the end, but we will also be paying attention to the chat box. So feel free to use the chat box to ask any questions.
Sorry, every time I scroll across the top, the Zoom bar wants to come down. Whatever. There we go.
Awesome. Ready?
All right, we're ready. Oh, there we go.
There we go. So if we could go ahead and get some audience participation, and just on your keyboard, if you could indicate where you are in your faculty search, just to give us an idea as to who we're speaking to, that'd be great. And I think there's a way for us to see live answers, so we'll know who has responded and who hasn't.
I think it's easier if you do it via text message. The number is 37607. If you first start by texting what you see there, Aisha, Dicker, so without the end, 769, you'll join this poll. And then once you join, text A, B, C, or D to let us know where you are currently in your search. And we're just going to give you all a couple of minutes to do that.
Doc candidates are definitely representing right now. We got some folks who are currently in academia, catching up.
Look at that. Currently in academia, looking for a new position.
I think it's safe to say if you're currently in academia, you will always be kind of looking for a new position. Whether you are officially doing it or unofficially doing it.
Okay, just a few more seconds on this. We're going to move on to our next poll. All right, so right now we have 25% of you all are doctoral candidates and 75% are currently in academia looking for a new position. Oh, no, more of you are in academia and that number's going down.
Yeah.
All right, we're at 80 and 20. Still going.
82 and 18.
Every time I get ready to click on the slide,
Yeah.
a few more responses. 10, 9, 8, we're counting down. And there's a doc student. Good job, prepare for the future.
In the
Way to
chat
get
box,
started early.
in the chat box, we have master's student preparing for the future. We have currently searching. I know that person is a recent graduate. That's great to have a master's student preparing for the future.
Okay, let's go on to we have one more interactive question. So we are wondering, if this will go on to the next slide. I'll exit for a second. Okay, our next question is, I think you're texting to that same number. Yes, just text and let us know your academic discipline. Are you in counselor education, counseling psych, some other helping field, education, something, maybe you just saw this on social media and you don't know anything about counseling. Okay. Counselor education, supervision. Oh, school counselor education. Okay, so most of you are in, or all of you are in counselor education.
Yeah.
Okay. One high school ed.
Okay.
All right. I think it won't let me do that because I'm in poll everywhere.
All right, so how we wanted to start is one, and most of our participants are currently in academia, but we wanted to talk about the fact that there are various types of institutions to consider in your job search. Research one institution, a teaching institution, state versus private, for-profit, faith-based as examples. It's really important. I know that I have had various positions where I have chaired the committee at Waynesburg University. I currently have a position open at Missio Seminary, and I can tell by the cover letters that people have not researched the type of institution, and also really have not incorporated the culture of the institution that matches and integrates with who they are as prospective faculty members. So it's really important to understand because when it comes to when it comes to interview questions, a question you may get is, what interests you in our institution and the type of students that we have? So you need to know the culture of the institution. Additionally, for me, the last two institutions I've worked for have been faith-based institutions. And so it's really important to integrate your training, your experience with spiritual and religious perspectives, talking about that in your cover letter. Some institutions, as part of the application packet, will require a statement of faith. And so you really need to understand what is it they're looking for in their statement of faith. So really understand the types of institutions that are out there.
And so I also know that quite a few people attend Research One institutions, maybe in your doctoral program, publications. They focused on that a lot. They focused a lot on research, and you may be tired of that. You may want to look into going into a teaching institution. On the flip side, if you are currently attending an institution where research is not talked about as much, you may need to beef up your research before you start to apply for certain Research One institutions. These are things to keep in mind.
Yes, and that's good points, Dr. Dickerson, because those types of institutions are also going to determine your tenure and promotion process and the expectations and requirements for your dossiers. And so you have to think about what are going to be the requirements for tenure and promotion at each of those different types of institutions. Dr. Brooks.
Thank you. 2 points. One, for those of you who may have family and children that are a part of your relocation package or group, you may want to consider school systems and family support and proximity to and from loved ones. Although your job opportunities may take you across the country, you just may want to consider how far you are away from support, whether that's familial support or people who are friends, and also consider what type of lifestyle you'll have outside of work, whether or not your civic and social organizations are going to be present in your new city. If the institution is something that you are favorable and admirable of seeking out, but the town or city itself may not be, that's always something to consider. Basically, I tell people, don't go someplace that you're not comfortable being stuck, because you will have a life outside of academia, or if you're in the wrong place, you won't have a life outside of academia. So it's important to consider where you're going, in addition to where you will be working.
In addition to that, when you're getting started, I would also say talk to your family members if you do have a spouse or partner, and let them know that you may need to look at relocating. Depending on the state where you live, you may not want to move, you may not want to leave your family, you may not want your children to change schools. However, there may not be a lot of schools that are hiring in your area. So it might be something you want to talk to other people about.
And if I can add, I think, Dr. Brooks, your points are well taken. You have to think about who you are holistically. So we talk about, as counselors, this wellness model, but you got to think about your own personal wellness. And yes, you may get a job at an institution that's in a rural area, But if you're part of being involved in an urban area, community, access, how is that going to impact what you do outside of work? You also have to think about your own health, your mental health, your physical health, and how the environment inside the institution and outside the institution is going to impact you as well.
So I know a lot of you are wondering, where do you search for jobs? Where are the jobs posted? How do you actually know about positions that are available in academia? So just really quickly, we have the top ways. Most jobs are posted on the Chronicle of Higher Education. That's the website there. You can look for not just counselor education positions, but perhaps you want to go into human services. You can look at other programs that accept people who have doctoral degrees in counselor education. Or even for the master's student, there may be programs that are hiring adjuncts where they only require a master's degree. There are also programs for associate degrees that hire people who have bachelor's degrees. But the majority of higher education jobs we posted on the Chronicle of Higher Education, and also higher ed jobs. Now, for those of you who are in counselor education and supervision, there is a listserv called SASNet, Counselor Education and Supervision Network. Now, I will say that there's a lot of stuff on there that's not exactly useful, but if you can sift through all of those emails on a daily basis, every now and then you will get some job postings. You'll also get information about publishing opportunities, conferences that are coming up. Things of that nature. There are also conferences, especially the Counselor Education and Supervision Conference, ACES, SACES, WACES, any of your regional ACES conferences. A lot of times they allow students to do informal interviews at those conferences, and these are also chances for you to connect with other professionals. Lastly, word of mouth. If you have connected with the right people and they have a position open at their university, they very well may reach out to you directly to invite you to apply for a position.
And one of the things that we kind of teased about when we started the presentation was there are many of folks who are currently in academia who are always looking for a new job. You may not have the luxury of starting from a fresh place, and people could just say that you're attractive on paper and you present well and you have great counselor education faculty qualities. Would you be interested in pursuing something at this institution? And there may be a job that's created for you. Or some people may work in adjunct capacities or non-tenure seeking capacities, and then these jobs morph into something else. So your getting started point isn't always at this organic place of an announcement. Sometimes it's a opportunity that's created specifically for you. So it's important that you always present well, not just your formal presentations, but that you always give everyone the best possible you that you can. I think we're ready for the next slide.
So what makes up a decent vita? It's really interesting because when I get CVs in for different positions, whether it's an assistant position, associate position, I really glance and I'm specifically looking to see that the prospective candidate has addressed with what is in the job posting. If I don't see that they have addressed what those requirements are in the job posting, then I may put that CV to the side. Most institutions have a rubric where they are assessing the candidate's cover letter and their vita based on what the job postings are. So you want to make sure that you are attending to specifically what the position is looking for. And of course, positions are looking for your experience in teaching. And they're really looking for those experiences in those 5 CACREP areas: teaching, supervision, leadership, research, and counseling. So you want to make sure that you tailor your vita to address and pull out those 5 CACREP areas. And that's really important because of the way our field is going with the 2016 standards and what's going to be happening in 2024. Most institutions are looking for people who understand the CACREP requirements. And so if you can order your CV and your vita based on those areas, that would be great. You want to highlight your teaching experience, whether you've taught full-time. So when we did the poll everywhere, there's quite a few people who are currently in academia, possibly teaching full-time, looking for something else. So it's really important to talk about what types of courses that you have taught, whether it's a CACREP or a non-CACREP program, a counselor education program, a counseling site. So you really want to pull that out. Talk about if you've done some adjunct and if you taught online. Now, if a program is specifically looking for somebody who has experience teaching online, you want to put that into your vita, that it shows that you have that experience. Service. We're looking at service at the local level, at the state level, at the national. So what types of leadership positions? You can even start with leadership positions in your doctoral program. Were you involved in your Student Counseling Association? Were you involved in CSI? Were you involved in, I know here in Philadelphia, we have the Greater Philadelphia Counseling Association. So what professional organizations have you been a part of? Many of our divisions now and our professional organizations are looking for reviewers for conference proposals. So you can get involved even as a doctoral student, as a current faculty member, reviewing conference proposals for various conferences, whether it's ACA. I know we just had, a request for conference reviewers for the Acerbic conference this summer. So those are some different service ideas that you can get involved in. And I really think it's important because if we are teaching our master's level and doctoral students to get involved in service, we need to have faculty members who do the same. Research. What's your experience in research? I know one of my mentors really pointed out when you list your publications and your presentations, if you have co-authored or presented with a team, you bold your name so that your name stands out with those presentations and those publications, and have a specific area. I would also add, if you have been a part of grant writing and you have received different grants, you list those grants as well, whether it's a separate area or whether you had research as part of those grant applications. And then also licensures and board certifications. What do you have? And that should be highlighted because most faculty positions are looking for people who are licensed and board certified as well.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Dr. Brooks.
Just to follow up, I know there are a number of people who have gap years and may not spend their entire time in academia, or they may leave academia and want to come back. I tend to encourage those people to still behave as if they're still in academia. So what does that mean? That means that you still need to pump out or produce a certain amount of scholarship that's consistent with an institution that you want to be working at. You don't want to have gaps in your teaching, so you want to maintain that either you do guest lectures in your area or that you join some type of online institution. You don't want to distance yourself from your professional associations. So just remind yourself or be mindful that if you have a gap year from Counselor Ed per se, that you don't lose any productivity in case you may want to re-enter Counselor Ed.
Thank you. And I wanted to add one thing about the publications and presentations. It's great to have a lot of those on your vita, but if you're always the third, fourth, fifth author, you may want to look at that. Present alone or ask if you could be bumped up to first or second author, because people do look at that. All right, let's talk a little bit about professionalism. Starting with conference attendance. Know that once you set foot on the ground at a conference, you are being watched. So You don't necessarily want to hop off the airplane in your shortest shorts and, just loud and having a great time. When you're at a conference, especially if you are looking for a position in academia, you are working, you are networking. So be aware of your surroundings at all times. Next, your social media presence. People will judge you based on your social media. Are they supposed to look you up on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything? No, technically no, but maybe they've already seen you in the past, or maybe you've shown up as one of their suggested connects. And if your picture on your social media profile is you in a bikini, great, I'm glad that you work out and you can wear a bikini, but you may want to consider changing that up a little bit. If you're not just because you're working in academia, but those of you who are working in mental health may also want to consider what people can see on your social media profiles. Pay attention to your professional reputation, especially when you're at conferences or going to any trainings. If the training starts at, let's say this one started at 12. If you showed up to this webinar 5 minutes ago, we saw that. And we saw your name pop up 20 minutes late for a webinar. Just be aware that people are paying attention to those things. And attire, especially when you're doing an interview. What I have on right now as a sweater, that's not appropriate for an interview. It's still, you can still go old school, go classic. There's nothing wrong with wearing a suit or a blazer. Dr. Brooks, you look a lot more appropriate for an interview than I do. See, y'all see that? Okay. And mentoring, I'm going to let Dr. Tinsley talk about mentoring.
Yep, mentoring is definitely something that I'm very passionate about. And we all need mentors, regardless of what level we are in, whether we're entry level, middle level, or later level in academia or in our career. There's not a time that I pick up the phone and contact one of my mentors. You can use your mentors in terms of getting feedback on particular positions, using the mentor in terms of talking about positions, but those mentors are there to just guide you. And so it's really important that you have conversations about your career development and being open to feedback about the mentoring. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I do want to say it's really important to understand that mentoring is a two-way street. And so there's both the mentor and mentee have a role and responsibility. There's an article in the 2018 AMCD newsletter on the AMCD website. I'll post a link here, but it really talks about what is mentoring and the role and responsibility in those in mentoring. And it's really important to have mentors when you are looking for positions and networking for positions.
And when you have a mentor, also consider what you can do to help your mentor. Don't be elite. Try to make the relationship as mutualistic as possible. Find out if you can help them. Can I go with you to these meetings and take your notes for you? Can I help you on some research? Dr. Brooks, would you like to add anything?
No, ma'am. I think you all covered it.
All right.
So the next slide, I talked a little bit about the CV. It's really important to submit a CV versus a resume, very different. There's different types of CVs that are out there. So it's really important to get feedback on your CVs. That's where a mentor will come in, or mentors, where you can have people that review your CVs. I would also say the American Counseling Association, they have their career department, and they really help people with looking at CVs and giving back. And at ACA, take advantage of the career corner that's going to be in the exhibition hall. But really making sure you have an updated vita, the dates are corrected, you have your information broken down in those 5 CACREP areas. It's also important for references. You have people that are going to know who you are personally and professionally. And it is important to make sure you talk to the people that you're listing as references to let them know that you are applying for those positions. I often kind of start cringing when I get a call for a reference and I didn't even know the person applied for the job. And for me, and I know that I am very different, but when somebody asks me to be a reference or they ask me to write a recommendation letter, there's some roles and responsibilities that they have. I want a copy of the CV so that I know what they've said in their CV and their cover letter. And if they've asked me for a recommendation, I ask them to write first what they would like me to say, and then I will fill in the blanks, because we need to make sure that we have a relationship. I know you and I can speak on behalf of you. And then your cover letter. I have a job posting here right now and I'm looking at it, and I have that etched in my brain. So when I'm looking at a cover letter, I know exactly what I'm looking for, as I stated before. So in this particular position, it says a Ph.D. in Counselor Education and Supervision from a CACREP-Accredited program. So you need to highlight you have a CACREP, you're from a CACREP-Accredited program. Applicants must hold or are eligible for licensure as a professional counselor in that state. So you need to make sure that that is being stated in your cover letter. Evidence of strong supervision skills, scholarly research, and quality teaching and clinical skills is required. So are those things being highlighted in your cover letter? I also want to point out, there are many positions. I went and scanned through higheredjobs.com, and many of the faculty positions, when they're looking for somebody who is an associate, coming in as an associate, they're looking for somebody with experience. So you really need to highlight in your cover letter your experience coming in as an assistant professor, your experience as an adjunct, and attending to those specializations that they are looking for. Dr. Dickerson?
I just want to touch back on building relationships now. If you've been in your doc program and you've been doing the bare minimum, you're going to have an issue when it comes to getting a reference. You can't ask, or you shouldn't ask, faculty members who maybe taught you for 1 or 2 classes and never had any other interaction with you. They may say that they're willing to write a letter for you, and the letter may be 1 paragraph, and that 1 paragraph is enough to let hiring institution know that they aren't really recommending you for that position. Institutions who are hiring faculty members know that a reference letter from someone who is actually invested in the individual's future will be multiple pages sometimes, and a minimum 3-4 paragraphs. So keep those things in mind.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes it's what you don't say, as opposed to what you do say. Okay, this slide kind of unpacks the entire stereotypical, in some ways, faculty search process, and we've kind of glossed over some of these topics. There is the pre-on-campus process, which is typically an application packet consisting of a cover letter and a vita, maybe some names with some references and transcripts. And then that's followed up by a really short Skype or telephone interview. Know that at every step that there is some type of elimination. So everyone who submits an application packet doesn't get a Skype interview. Usually the Skype interviews are a time for the search committee to discuss whether or not the applicant is sure about what's being expected and next step processes. And then if you make it through that part, then there's the on-campus portion, which is usually a 2-day experience. Most times people fly in the morning of, interview all day and fly out the next day. Sometimes they fly in late on that evening, interview all day and fly out that same day. Every now and then you'll have a crazy schedule where you fly in, red-eye that morning, fly in, last flight that evening. But that's the time when you meet with your deans, your department chairs, your faculty, search committee members, and students. And I suggest you tailor responses for each level of these people. You should have questions specific to the dean that speak to the vision of the college and the school. You should have questions for the department chair that speak directly to their involvement and their vision and scope for the department, the search committee, and faculty as well. And students, you should have questions for students specifically to them. Your research and teaching presentations, you may have one, you may have both, you may have a third. I've been a part of all varieties of that. I think your research needs to be something that's tailored to the institution as well as your teaching. So that would require you to do some front-loading work where you investigate where you're going, as well as the work of the faculty members. I tend to tell people to speak to how you complement what the faculty are doing. I work at an HBCU, and I'm often telling people, if you come saying that you want to work with Black people and people of color, you've just made yourself more of the same and not more different. But if you can talk about how you enhance multicultural scholarship and how you extend certain conversations or how your methods complement what the other faculty are doing, then that definitely will get my attention. And then also, once you've completed the on-campus portion, the post-interview, the thank yous, I'm old school. I still believe in thank yous. I still think it's kind just to thank people for their time and what they've done. I even would encourage you to write handwritten thank yous. I know that may not be the in vogue thing, but I still say do that. Negotiations, if you are fortunate enough to get a negotiation or enter negotiations, I think you should have somebody that you share everything with, how you feel, what you think is acceptable, looking at the total package, not just the pay rate. I think I may be a little different. I think time is more valuable than money. So I tend to tell people, look at your time and how that will be spent, not necessarily a paycheck amount. Some people think that they're worth more than what the job is paying. So in some cases, academia or counselor ed or this particular institution may not be a good fit. So it's always good to have someone who's going to ground you and be objective. Even in the acceptance, at what point do you accept? What is too late? If someone advertises for a job in January and you're entering into July in your negotiations and acceptance, what's that going to look like? I said earlier, if you have relatives and family and children, that's all a part of the negotiations and acceptance piece. If it's just you moving across country, that's one thing. If you have to pack up 2 kids in a house and send the spouse over to get a job, and you may need a little bit of time. So there's a process to go ahead and work that out so that everyone wins. And then there's the transition itself. How much time do I need to give myself to become acclimated and oriented to the new place? How do I position myself in my teaching load? Because usually those first few evaluations can be daunting. So you want to have a conversation with your department chair to say, I need some reprieve on these first few evaluations because I'm still learning the area, even if you are an expert in this particular area. Every place is different. All students tend to have a little bit of a nuance to them, and you deserve the opportunity to be your best self. So that's some real down and dirty on the entire process. Follow-ups, colleagues.
Yes, I'd like to add, and thank you for that, Dr. Brooks. We have some sample interview questions that we will send as a follow-up. But just remember, not only is the institution interviewing you, you're interviewing the institution. So one, make sure you review different interview questions of what they potentially can ask. And so when you get the handouts from us, there are sample questions on there for you. And you need to think about those questions are going to be related to the areas they have on the job posting. Now, I do want to make a comment because I just mentioned this last week to a group that I was meeting with in Pittsburgh. People always some of the questions that were asked were, what's it going to look like if I'm moving to another institution? Well, right now you have Dr. Brooks and I, we've been at 2 different institutions, and there are people who have been at various institutions. My philosophy is we live in a world that's forever changing. So each of us as individuals are going to be changing. Institutions are going to be changing. So you really have to think about what your goals are. Are you looking to get into one place and be tenured and promoted, and then can you use that to go somewhere else? Are you looking to get your foot in the door just to get some experience? So you really have to be clear on what your goals are, because that's going to then translate to the types of questions you're asking the institution. I gave a reference for someone, and I said to the chair, they just graduated from their doctoral program. They had their first position in counselor education. And sometimes these positions are like shopping for shoes. You have to try them on, and sometimes those shoes don't ever look good or fit after you take them home. And it is okay, but how are you communicating and articulating that in your interviews without, quote unquote, mouthing the previous institution? I also think when it comes to interviewing them, you need to ask them about what's it like for culturally diverse faculty in this department. What types of support do you have? Do you have financial support for going to conferences? And you really want to be able to assess the culture of that department and of the institution in terms of the support that you will receive.
I also want to add with the on-campus interviews and even telephone or Skype interviews, just like with conferences, remember that you are on right after you get off of the airplane. So yes, you may be tired, maybe you just woke up from the plane, but stop by the restroom, comb your hair, pop a Listerine strip, and be ready to work back up, because there's more than likely a faculty member that's picking you up or will meet you at your hotel.
Yes, I intentionally tell my students to interview everyone, even in the most unofficial capacity. I'm always going to the people who interact with candidates, and I say, what did you think? How did that go? Were they nice? I cover all of that. So yes, you are always on as long as until you step foot back in that airplane. Every time you are in someone's face, you are being evaluated.
So it looks like we have a question. Should we take questions now or wait until the end?
Well, I think our next slide is the question slide, so I think we could take the questions. The first.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yeah, the first question we received is, what's the best way to turn down an offer? For me, I like the sandwich approach. The 2 slices of bread are the positives. The inside is the reasons why you may not, or the challenges. So thank you very much for the offer. I greatly appreciate. However, when I look at all of the criteria, what I'm looking for in the position, I just think that there are some other opportunities that I would like to explore. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that we still can collaborate or connect in the future. So you have to be open to highlighting the positives, but also stating that there are certain things, personalize it. Here's what I was looking for. Here are some opportunities I'm looking for elsewhere. But again, I appreciate it. That's my way of doing it.
And I also want to add, if there was an issue during the interview that perhaps some of the higher ups need to know, I wouldn't shy away from giving that as your reason for not accepting a position. I did have to do that where a couple of the faculty members asked some personal questions that were not professional, and I felt uncomfortable during the interview and no longer wanted to be at the institution. I let the chair and also the dean know that that was my reason that I was withdrawing my application for the institution.
So Aisha, just to clarify, you withdrew your application.
Oh yes,
You didn't.
you're right. I did not. It wasn't not accepting an offer. I withdrew an application.
That's an interesting point, because I don't know if people know even how or when they should withdraw. That's why I made the distinction.
Thank you. So perhaps you've already received a wonderful offer from another university, and University B is just taking too long to let you know what's going on, and you're afraid of missing out on opportunity from University A. It may say, well, we need an answer in the next couple of weeks. University B is saying, well, we won't be able to tell you anything for a month. You have to make a decision now.
And if you don't take care of you, who will? So you have to be willing to advocate for yourself, advocating for what you need, what is not, those needs not getting met if that institution is not able to meet those needs. So take care of yourself. It is, there's that saying that self-care is not a luxury, it's an ethical mandate. And if you don't take care of yourself in terms of what you need in the position up front, it's going to impact you later on down the road in terms of your own wellness at the institution.
Dr. Burke, you want to add something else?
The only thing I could add on this question is just be honest. More than likely, if you're turning down a job in counselor ed, these are people that you're going to see again, probably very soon. So you want to be gracious and honest. I've been fortunate and privileged enough to turn down a few opportunities, and I've just kind of said, look, I appreciate everything. It's just not the right time, and this isn't the right place for me right now. Things could change later, but at this point in my life, it's just not a good idea for me to do that. And most folks have respected that, and I've tried to do that as quickly as I could. I didn't want to drag the rejection drag the rejection out. So I wanted to give people a chance to find another candidate if possible.
Thank you. That's very true. As an example, I had an offer where the position started in January, but I do have children, and I didn't want to move my children in the middle of the school year. And I explained that, and they understood. All right, we have a couple of other questions. One from Natalie. Any thoughts on the number of applications that one fills out during a search? You get nervous about missing out on opportunities while waiting for institutions. You should not be waiting on one institution before you're applying for another position. You should have, I don't know about everyone else, but when I was applying for faculty positions, I had a goal of at least completing one application every 1 to 2 weeks. As soon as call came out, I was putting in my application and letting them know my interest, because just because you put in an application doesn't mean that you're even going to get an interview. For a lot of them, you won't get a response at all.
And I want to add too, you may get the response, you may get the interview, but now let me give you the business side of institution. It comes down to money and budget as well. So there may be an institution that says, hey, I need this position, but the position is going to be based on June 1st, July 1st, whenever that academic budget year starts, if they get the funding for the position. So you may interview in March, but may not hear about the position until they know from that budget year that they got the money in the budget. And I think that relates to somebody else's question. Cynthia, she said, what's the best way to negotiate the salary? I think it's important for you to, ACA had put out a average salary for counselor educators. You can go on to, I think it's salary.com, don't quote me, I'd have to look it up, but you can look up average salaries in counselor education for assistant professors, associate professors. You can look at the average salary in a city, and you can do comparables, and you give a range, and you have to think about what your minimum is and what that range is going to be. And again, with that salary, it's going to be based on that institution's budget. Do they have the money to be able to pay you that amount? So those are some things you have to think about. Don't stop waiting, or don't stop applying to other positions, but also know that sometimes when you don't hear from someone, because of what's going on administratively at that institution or budget financially.
Also, on the Chronicle of Higher Education, you can see the current salaries for their assistant, associate, and full professors, especially for all state institutions. That is public information. So that's something to keep in mind if you work for a state institution, that people will be able to see how much money you're making or your base salary. You can go there to look at what's too much to ask for and what's too low that they're offering. I'm sorry, Dr. Brooks, you were saying.
No need to apologize. I think you all covered it all. I was just going to say, if you need a job, keep that in mind too. You might just negotiate yourself right back to the couch. So just keep in mind that the reason why you're getting into this is to go to work.
Yeah, and I think Shelley asked a question about cost of living. You have to incorporate that with what your minimum is and what your range is. And you know how we talk about when you write your dissertation, when you're writing a research study, you have to provide evidence to support your statement. You need to be able to provide evidence of why you're requesting that range. Now, the other thing is, are there other opportunities for you to make income? Is the position a 9-month contract, a 10 months, so that if you teach in the summer, are you getting extra income? Do you get release time to see clients in a private practice or an agency? So you need to kind of think about that whole big picture as well. If you are at a research one institution and it's expected that you bring in grant money, are you able to increase your income by getting some grants and some grant money? So just kind of think about how do you put that whole puzzle together when it comes to your income as well.
And if you need to, let them know, you can bring up the cost of living. Now, most universities are aware of this. I work for a university where there are campuses in different states. And so people who do the same job may make different amounts of money depending on which campus they work at. The cost of living is different. Our professors in California are paid the same amount as our professors in Georgia.
It doesn't hurt to also save your money. Most of the assistant professor jobs are going to be lower than expected. I'll say it like that. And so the good thing about higher ed is there are other opportunities to generate income, but it takes a little bit of time to learn the terrain and tap into these resources. So you may have to tie your belt a little tighter for a little while. I don't know anyone who's just stepped into the job and everything has been smooth. Even getting the cable cut on takes an additional expense. When we moved to North Carolina, we rented for a year because we just didn't know where we wanted to live, but we knew we had to live somewhere. So we had to move twice. That was my point. So there's going to be added expenses, and I don't think there's any one way to cover all of them. So I think you're going to have to figure that out. I'm going to flow into the next question. What's the job market like for counselor educators? Is it a job in demand? My answer is yes, absolutely. There are always postings for job opportunities in counselor ed. And we're still in the business of generating counselor educators. I think one of these wells would dry up if there weren't a demand for counselor educators. Here's where I kind of raise the bar a little bit. I don't think counselor education students do an intentional job of making themselves exclusive. So I still think that counselor education students want to do generally the same thing. And no one wants to specialize in methodologies, or no one wants to specialize in analysis. So I think if we wanted to really make our stars shine brighter, I think we could consider how do we make ourselves exclusive so that we can be in demand as well as be part of a profession that's looking for new new faculty members?
There was one question that I just want to address real quick, and I know that we had said no more questions because we are coming to an end and we want to be mindful of time. Dr. Dickerson just put up our contact information, so please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any other questions. Diane asked a question on how do you re-engage with the professional counseling associations after 2 years? I would say you just begin to reconnect with them. You can reach out to whatever associations that you are interested in and state who you are and that you're interested in getting involved. We have ACA that's coming up in March. If you're attending ACA, attend the division meetings at the national level, at the state level. Various states are having their annual conferences and attending them. But I know that I just got an email from a doctoral student at an institution that says, are there any ways that I can get involved? And so I was able to just say, okay, here are some different areas that you can get involved. So don't hesitate to reach out to any of us, but also reaching out to the state, local, national, professional organizations.
Did you have any last thoughts, comments?
I hope if you're looking for a job, you will really put yourselves out there and be intentional about seeking faculty positions at the professional associations in particular, and don't be afraid to push boundaries. I think everyone who has an interest in being a faculty member should be a faculty member. It's just about being diligent and putting your best foot forward so people can realize and make contact with you.
My last thought would be that you all just make sure that you put in the work. No position, just like no job, is going to just hop in your lap. So you need to put yourselves out there and pay attention to your professional and personal reputation right now if you're planning on throwing your CVs out in 2019.
Dr. Tinsley, you're muted. All right, I can't hear you.
She got caught up in the vapors.
Oh.
Well, if you all have questions for any of us or Dr. Tinsley after, or myself, Dr. Brooks, or Dr. Tinsley after this presentation, here's our contact information here. Please connect with us on our various social media pages. And if you have a short question, email it to us. Other than that, you may need email asking for an appointment.
Yes, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to do this webinar for AMCD. We will be sending an email out via our Eventbrite, and it will go directly to the email that you registered for this webinar for. If you do not see that email by tomorrow, please send me an email. All my contact information is on the Eventbrite as well. I also want to highlight we have 2 webinars coming up. We have one January 10th, which is about grant writing, and then we have one again with Dr. Tinsley that will be in February, I believe February 7th. So those are all on the Eventbrite as well. As you know, as AMCD members, all of our webinars are free for you. So if you have any questions about how you make that webinar free, please don't pay. Send me an email and I'll walk you through the process. So I hope you all have a wonderful week and Happy New Year.